Good morning, everybody. I had prepared and going across the Great Continental Divide on Wednesday, just driving along, minded my own business, not bothering anybody, not bothering God. Felt a tug at my heart that said, I want you to talk about this. It is one of my favorite verses in all the Bible. It is one of the most powerful words I think we can have in our lives. Desire. Now, boy, that word is like the roots of a great oak tree. Those words go in a lot of different directions. Would you take a minute and look at a video that Carl made from our backyard to convey desire? Desire, one of those words that could have great and wide and vast meanings. I think about the desire that we have in our heart. In this respect, this is survival of the species, a fundamental, innate drive to stay alive. Instincts, behaviors. We see those deer in that yard, our yard. They're doing it in your yard too, by the way. They're seeking food, reproduction, and they're avoiding danger. Talking about avoiding danger, as close as from me to the keyboard here, I've been in my yard with one of those bucks when he lowered his head down and looked at me. If he'd have lunged forward, I probably wouldn't be here today, and I would hope that you would come visit me in the hospital. But all these things that we saw up here are normal. They're natural behavior. But desire, being a strong feeling worthy or unworthy, that impels the attainment and possession of something that is, whether in reality or in your imagination, desire for success. How many of you in here want to be successful? How many are striving to have more power? How many of you going to the gym are striving to have more and a greater strength? There are those that are wanting to have authority over someone. I just want to be the boss of somebody. There are those that, if you grew up in the corporate world, I grew up at Johnson Controls, the need for a title. I never thought a whole lot about having a title. It was not impressive to me. And some people have more degrees than a thermometer. There's that drive for wealth, more money. Was it J. Paul Getty that says when reporter asked him one day, well, Mr. Getty, how much money do you want? And he said, just one more dollar. Desire, most people's mind, leads to sexual desire. After all, our world today is riddled with it, campaigned with it. Some people are obsessed with having beauty. Some people, I don't struggle with this one, that intellectual dominance thing. They just want to be smarter than everybody else. Then there are those that just want to have whatever you have. They're longing for, wishing for, craving. They just want what you have. I think about how dangerous these things can be, or how great these things can be. Psalms 37:4 here. 37:4. From within your heart. From within your heart. That's where our desires come from. He says in Psalms 37:4, I will give you the very desires of your heart. Jeremiah 17:9. I think about this one a lot. But the heart of man, and I'm paraphrasing, but the heart of a man, but who could know it? Have you ever been around that person where you knew them, you were connected to them, and then they did something so uncharacteristic that it blew your mind? The heart of a man, but who can know it? I think of this man David and all that he went through, and it blows my mind. This man lived a lot of life. And here in this verse, Psalm 27, verse 4, he's crying out and he says, one thing I have desired, and the one thing that I am looking for, I am seeking for it. I think about what fabricated this desire. Just to name a few, David was rejected by his own family. I don't know if you know that or not, especially during his youth. His brothers, David being the youngest, was ridiculed, lampooned, lambasted, and made fun of. When they came to find a king, Dad didn't even think enough of him to say, hey, what about my son? He had to say, is there somebody else? Because I've talked to all your other crumb snatchers, and there's got to be somebody else. He said, yeah, well, I got one more out here in the South 40 tending sheep. He was last. During that period of time, he was about 15 years old, and God had a lot going on with him. We see that as a shepherd, he had to be a fighter, not just a feeder for those sheep. There were thieves, somebody that come along and wanted his sheep. The bear came out to take a sheep. The lion came to take out a sheep. And there this young boy learned to fight. He faced Goliath. I think of that story. He's ridiculed, rejected by all of his brothers, and he goes to bring them 10 loaves, 10 things of cheese and some Subway sandwiches or whatever. And he pulls up, and all of a sudden there's this guy on the other side. And he's swearing and cursing against God. And this young, ruddy little boy looks at the army of God, and something wells up in him, and he says, who is that man that defies my God? He won't give me something, I'll take him out. It reminds me of that little puppy that we got at the house that's 1 year old. The deer out there in the yard with 10 points, probably weighing 200 pounds or so. In her heart, she could take him. In Samuel 17:45, Goliath looks at that boy and says, am I but a dog that you would send this wormy excuse of a warrior out here to fight me with just a stick? What kind of army are you? What kind of nation are you that you would send something like that out against me? But David said, I'm going to defend my God. He took care of me when that bear come against me. He took care of me when that lion came. He took care of me when my mom, my dad rejected me. We'll talk more about that later on. And he does the right thing, and he kills Goliath. And then all the nation sings his praises. And what happens? the king, Saul, tries to kill him. So for the next several years, this young boy, instead of enjoying his success, ran for his life. 15 years later, David finally becomes king at the ripe old age of 30. His whole life is riddled with military conflicts. Then we go along and see the drama with Bathsheba. And then this man that has got a heart after God has her husband killed, a murderer. He marries Bathsheba. Can you think of the wedding? How powerful it must have been. And then all of a sudden the preacher comes to see you. And he called him out. What a day. From here to here. Then we have David's son, Ammon. If enough ain't enough, Ammon rapes David's daughter Tamar. Daddy's heart. David's heart must have been broken. And if that's not enough, he goes down the road a little bit, and then Absalom, his own son, rebels against David. David again goes into exile, fearing for his life. Where does all this end? Finally, Absalom is killed, and we have the story of the brokenness that this man goes through. At this time, Absalom is about 30 years old, and David would have been about 63 years old. And then David comes up with this really cool idea. I'm going to do a census. God said, don't do it. And then God dealt with him. And then we see the story where David's gotten old, and he died. I think about the words he wrote in this book, book of Psalms. When I need encouragement, when I need courage, when I need strength, when I need praise, when my life is broken, we can go to the book of Psalms and we can find some of the greatest things in the world. You see, David here did not have a PhD in theology, but we can go to a man that lived a lot of life, things he did not learn in a classroom. No one stood there and told him about it. He went through it. He went to the school of hard knocks. Have any of you ever been to that school? Life is a hard teacher. They're one of the things that I've said before. I wrote it one of my 63 things that I'd learned at that age. You got to be tough to be dumb. I've been there. So is it any wonder that David wrote just a few of these? Psalm chapter 1, he starts off. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and his law he meditates both day and night. For he shall be like a tree planted by rivers of living water, that brings forth his fruit in season. His leaf shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper. I think about this sometimes at 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning when I'm walking those dogs. And you go out there and you look up and you see the heavens. David penned it best of all. And when I consider thy heavens, the work of thy fingers, the moon, the stars which thou hast ordained. What is man that thou art mindful of him, the Son of Man, who visiteth him? For he hath made him, me, a little less than the angels, and has crowned him with glory and honor. We're talking about a man that's been through all these things that we captured a few minutes ago, and yet he writes one of the most beautiful poetic verses, chapters in all the Bible. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Y'all know it. Y'all all know it in here. And he ends in verse number 6, so to speak, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This man is desiring something more than a 3-point poem in a prayer. And y'all, let's go home. Chapter 42, he starts off as the heart panteth after the water. So panteth my soul after thee, O God. My soul thirsts for God, the living God. When shall I come and appear before God? My tears have been my meat day and night, while they continually say unto me, where is thy God? And then he says, and when I remember these things, when I remember these things, I pour out my soul in me. For I had gone out with a multitude and went with them into the house of God, and with the voice of joy and praise. What a day. What a day. Psalms chapter 63. We're studying the book of Acts in Sunday school. Back in the day, if Casey Kasem was doing the America's Top 40 countdown, Psalm 63 had been at the top of the Billboard charts during those years. This was sang more than any other song by the early church. O God, thou art my God, early will I seek thee. My soul thirsts for thee, my flesh longs for thee in a dry and thirsty land where there is no water. Why, you may ask, why? To see thy power and thy glory. So I have seen thee in the sanctuary, because thy loving kindness is better than life. My lips shall continually praise thee. Thus will I bless thee while I live. I will lift up my hands in thy name when I remember thee upon my bed, and meditate both in the night watches, because you have been my help. Through all these things, warfare, adultery, murder, children rejecting you, coming after your job. When is enough enough? Then in chapter 73, I love where he says, but whom in heaven but thee? There's none upon the earth that I desire beside thee. Desire. My flesh, my heart. But God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. But it is good for me to draw near to God. I have put my trust in the Lord God. You see, when we get to chapter 27, there's 3 or 4 chapters right here that are all pulled together. They're just different songs. Psalms 25, we see a prayer for guidance and forgiveness and deliverance. Spurgeon's comment on this. He says, this is evidently a composition from David's latter years. He mentions here in this chapter the sins of his youth and the craft and cruelty of many foes in life. It seems to refer to the times of rebellion with his son Absalom. This has been styled as one of the 7 pentateuch psalms. And then he says here, it is the mark of a true saint that in his sorrows, it reminds him of his sins, and his sorrow for sin drives him to God in prayer. That's profound. Psalms chapter 26 is a declaration of integrity and trust towards God. It applies the psalm to a time when David was pure. It's probably during the time he was fleeing the wrath of Saul. During this time, David indeed was without blame. He paraphrased in Psalms chapter 26 and verse number 1, I've never plotted against the life or property of any man. I've never coveted the crown of Saul. but I have lived a blameless life, he says. And then we come to Psalms chapter 27. Here we see a chapter that could be divided in so many different ways. Some people say that Psalms verses 27, 1, 2, and 3 should be a different psalm. Some say that 1 through 6 should be one psalm and the rest of it should be separated. But one thing I see in the beauty of this chapter, we see David going from height to depth. Isn't that like our lives? We can be walking on sunshine 1 minute, and in the moment, in the twinkling of an eye, things have changed. I think of Kenneth and Sally Obley. Beautiful home 1 minute, pile of ashes the next. I think of many of you and the stories that you've shared. I think of Tyler Dixon. And on Monday nights, he's teaching us the words we speak. Y'all, I've heard different people share different things biblically. But I'm telling y'all, this past Wednesday night, sitting over in this little room, Tyler Dixon plowed deep. I'm not going to share his story. But it would be just like I stopped talking right now and went over here and just grabbed one of you and talked directly to you in the crowd of people. The room had other people in there, but he only spoke to me. This psalm goes from one end to the other. What he desires here is to be in the house of God. Now, y'all want to think about something here. He was not looking at this cathedral. This is David. Who built the temple? Solomon, his son. He's looking at a tent. He's not looking at strong, fortified walls with guards and all of its splendor and glory. This one thing I have desired of the Lord, and I'll seek after. This one thing is needful, and he sought after it. He looked for it. The walls of the temple are not a safe place. Do y'all know that? But the God that fills the walls in that temple, which in this case was just a tent, the God is the one he wanted to meet. We could go on and on and on about some of these things, but I wanted to bring out, and I have no concept where I am on time. Have I got 30 more minutes? Got a long time. First thing, there is a secret that we see. I'm going to call it the first thing because he said one thing that I have desired, so this is the first thing. Psalm 25:14. The secret of the Lord is with them that fear him. I'm not asking you to raise your hands, but how many of us really revere, respect, and fear God? There are people that can stand in a pulpit across America today and make jokes from the pulpit, make light of things in the church. I shudder at what God thinks about that. The secret of having a good, healthy relationship with God is fear him. The second thing in Psalms chapter 25, he says in verse 15, mine eyes are ever towards the Lord. Which brings us to the question of, what are you looking at? Where have your eyes been this week? I think about going to all these weapons trainings. For those of you that are trained, for all of those of you that shoot birds, cubby of quail just flew up. There's 15 birds in the cubby. Which one are you going to hit? Which one? The one you're looking at. If you just shoot up amongst them, that's Jerry Clowers for you, okay? You'll miss every one of them. What are you looking at? The third thing. He says in verse 16, turn to me and have mercy on me, for I am desolate and afflicted. Where did you turn? I'm thinking about Mr. Vivian Willis, no relation. You might be kin to him. We have a guest here today. Her last name's Willis as well. But Mr. Vivian, a farmer in Blakely, Georgia, used to say, I got 6 days to plant this farm, harvest these crops, and I have 1 day to go to church. I think about Charles Spurgeon when he made his comment. He said, I direct my affairs, that God fits in it. When you make your schedule, where in that schedule is God? Mr. Vivian, when he did take a vacation, which was not very often, it never involved Sunday. He was of that old cloth, by the way, y'all. He was one of these hardcore Methodists. You have to watch out for those Methodist people, okay? He says, is God the first to go when I need to go away? Do I make a choice between I'm not going to work this week so I can go off and have a good time? Or is the first thing to fall off my schedule is to join fellowship with a group of believers worshiping God? If he took Sunday off, there was a hurricane coming in, there was a storm on the horizon, and the crops had to be harvested. He truly only worked on Sunday when the ox was in the ditch. The fourth thing, look upon mine affliction and ask for forgiveness. The fourth thing, when did you last ask God to forgive you of your sin? I asked some people this week, and they said, well, I asked the Lord to forgive me of my sin 20 years ago. Ooh, that's scary. Keep my soul and deliver me. Let me not be ashamed. For God, I'm putting my trust in you. When did you last wait for God? Seek his face and desire him. Chapter 27, he starts off. The Lord is my light. He's the very essence of my salvation. For whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of all my life. Who in the world can I be afraid of? When the wicked, even mine enemies and my foes, came upon me, and they said they were going to eat my flesh. That's a true story. 1 Samuel 17:44. Goliath pointed his fingers at him and said, I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to spread your body across this field, and the birds and the beasts of this field would eat you. This young boy says here, when they come against me, they stumbled and they fell. Though a whole host encamp against me, my heart will not fear. Though war should rise against me, I'm going to be confident of this one thing. One thing I have desired, I want, I need, I'm going to focus on of the Lord. I'm going to look for it in the ground. I'm going to look for it on the horizon. I'm going to look for it in the sky. I'm going to look under the bed and in the closet. Wherever I go, whatever I'm doing, I'm seeking you, God. I want to dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life and behold your beauty. I want to see who you are. I want to know what you are, and I want to be a part of who you are. For in the time of trouble, and this man has been through trouble after trouble after trouble. When you read the story of David, and I started taking an Excel spreadsheet so I could do a numerical thing down the side. I'm not finished with it, because I was going to make a list and show it to y'all. It was too long for me to finish in the length of time I had. This guy went through some stuff. Hear, O Lord, when I cry with my voice. Have mercy upon me and answer me, please. God, I'm begging you. Hear my prayer. And when thou sayest, seek my face, my heart said unto thee, thy face, Lord, I will seek. Then David says, hide not your face from me. Put not thy servant away in anger. He's remembering some of his stunts he's pulled in his past. You've been my help, he says. Don't leave me. Don't forsake me, O God of my salvation. We're going back to that very first verse. And when my mother and my father forsake me. Has your mother and father ever forsaken you? I have a son that forsook me. Teach me your way, O Lord, and lead me in a plain path because of mine enemies. Deliver me not over to the will of mine enemies, for false witnesses are risen up against me, and such as they breathe out cruelty. I had fainted, he says in verse 13. Several weeks ago, months ago, thinking about what my son was doing, thinking about what our church was going through. I got up, I laid and I tumbled and I tumbled and I tumbled and I tumbled. I went downstairs, sit in the chair, and I thought, well, surely I'll fall asleep in the old white chair, kick it up. I laid there, I couldn't sleep, I couldn't rest. I'm thinking about my son, I'm thinking about this church, and I got up. I took 2 or 3 steps. Now I was firm, but the room began to spin around me. A few minutes later, all these people wanted to know who I was. That wasn't really the question. I had 2 questions. Who are you, and why am I on the floor? David said here, I had fainted. Verse 14. Wait on the Lord and be of good courage, and he shall strengthen thine heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord.